Okay.
Hi everyone, welcome to No Idea Whatsoever. Today I have with me Robin Roy. Robin, welcome.
Thank you.
Robin is the director and founder at Robin Roy Films, and he has directed various films and documentaries like Run of Kutch, Mount Everest, The President's Bodyguard, and Leopards of July. Personally, being my favorite, since I'm so interested and involved in wildlife myself. So, Robin, my thank you for coming.
It's great to be here.
And my first question to you is, did you know what you were going to do when you grew up, or did you have no idea whatsoever?
I had no idea whatsoever. I had no idea whatsoever. If you want me to be specific, I think I had a vague inkling that I wanted to be in something creative.
Yeah.
But what that was going to be, I have no clue. I remember vividly. I finished. I did pretty well in class 12, and I got into a good college. I was in St. Stephen's in Delhi. And the day I finished college, I was really scared going into this big world of not knowing what I wanted to do. And there was a little notice up on the notice board which said they were looking for production help on a feature film that was being shot in Delhi.
Okay.
And I just signed on, and 35 years later, I'm talking to you.
But did you ever, before that, hold a camera, know what a camera did? Like in terms of like a video camera as opposed to?
Sure. So, yes, I was taking a lot of, not a video camera, I was taking a lot of stills.
Okay.
I had an uncle's old Canon.
Yeah.
And I loved making pictures. Actually, I think if I talk to any youngster, even today, it's all about that box.
Yeah.
When you look through the viewfinder, you're making that one image. When I said I knew I was vaguely into creativity. I was also painting and sketching.
Okay.
So I was already in a sort of visual medium.
Yeah.
Coupled with, I was doing a lot of chatting. I was always the storyteller among my friends. It was always me who told stories. So essentially, it just became a combination of that. Pictures and stories, put them together, you get a movie.
Yeah.
And that's what I do now.
And I think that's such an interesting way of, you talked about stories and pictures, and even at Instrucco, we teach kids through storytelling because we really feel like whenever you listen to a story, you remember it, it makes an impact as opposed to just learning something which doesn't have anything you can relate to. So this.
And if I could interrupt you there, that's precisely actually what is needed in curriculum today.
Yeah.
Which we didn't have.
Yeah.
And in fact, honestly, I think there would be a lot of different life choices.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, if they only made school curriculums a little more exciting and invigorating and engaging. I do a lot of historical work today.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that if I show my latest series, which I'd love for you to see, is called India Marvels and Mysteries.
Okay.
It's on monuments across India and with lovely stories connected to them. If I saw stuff like that, stuff that I've made myself now, if I saw stuff like that as a kid, I would have really enjoyed my history class. But otherwise, history was boring as hell, man.
Yeah.
And it's not it's my favorite subject today.
Yeah.
If only someone just brought it to life when I was young, it would have changed things around. Film can be an absolute game changer where students are concerned.
Absolutely. And I think one of my questions was that, do you think they should really incorporate just featuring films while teaching kids, because there are so many movies that really teach you or at least generate a sort of interest in your life. Once you don't even know what you haven't seen. So once you see these films, for example, we talk about Run of Kutch that you made. You just by watching that, you know so much about things that you've never heard of or learned in school.
So without question, I was a fairly good reader.
Yeah.
But not everyone around me was.
Yes, exactly.
And you can't expect everyone to be.
Yeah.
So digesting information, whichever way it goes in, is important. If you can't get it through the written word, the audiovisual medium is the next best, or probably in some cases even better.
Yeah.
Like you said, you watched a film on the Run of Kutch, and you really enjoyed it. And therefore you know more about it. You got more information about it.
Yeah.
So about 30 years ago, after going freelance, I realized that I was doing a lot of very unsatisfactory, and pardon my language, crappy work in advertising. I was feeding off of a very lower end Delhi advertising work. There were corporate films and small ads and things like that. It just wasn't cutting the ice with me, and I suddenly got I got motivated to try and tell different stories, and I found a friend of mine, an elderly gentleman who was traveling to the Kumbh Mela. He was an Australian, and I decided to follow him with a camera, and I did so, and I made a really I'd like to believe
Creative.
a really interesting 25-minute documentary
Wow.
on this man's spiritual seeking in India, and I kind of enjoyed making it, and I took it to Discovery Channel,
Yeah.
and Discovery Channel was just about getting set in India at that point, and this thing. I took it to them, and you know they gave me luckily they gave me a sort of hearing. They watched it, and they didn't they didn't take the film, but obviously they must have seen something in me, because then they had an idea sometime later, and they approached me to be
you.
one of the filmmakers who could pitch for it.
Okay.
And to cut a long story short, I pitched for something. I did a pilot for them, which they loved. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I'm mistaken, the first TV series that was commissioned in India by Discovery was
Oh
done by me.
wow,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Well,
And what was that?
it was a food show.
Oh, okay.
There was a very famous There is a very famous journalist by the name of Veer Sangvi,
Yeah, of course.
who writes a food
Yeah.
column,
Yeah.
and I televised his food
Oh,
column.
lovely.
So each of our episodes took us to a new place where we talked about different food trends and things.
Yeah.
It wasn't just come kya bana rahe hain kind
Yeah.
of thing. They were all very sort of. Veer is an incredibly talented
Yeah.
and intelligent writer, and he was my anchor in front of this thing. And we wandered across India making terrific television
And eating amazing food.
and eating amazing food.
Did you
In
gain a
fact,
lot
by
of
the way,
weight
the same
after
show.
that?
In fact, the same show did so well that Discovery commissioned a second season, which
Oh,
we
wow.
called Asian Diaries, and then it wasn't just food; it became luxury. So we went all over the world.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't just eating great food. I've been to some of the most fabulous
properties.
properties
and-
across
Yeah.
across the world.
That is such a fascinating thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love that job actually.
It has its perks.
Yeah, but you talked about this Kumbh documentary that you made, and you said it became a 25-minute film about his spiritual seeking. How long was the actual film that you took?
Oh,
The
God.
footage, which then you compressed to 25
So,
minutes.
like all documentary work,
Yeah,
people usually have percentages of 100 to 1 or whatever. I can't tell you what percentage it was, but there
Yeah.
were hours and hours of stuff I filmed, and you whittle it down. You just try and get the best out of it to shrink it down into a coherent story.
yeah, because all the documentaries are 45 minutes to an hour. The ones that we've seen of yours, but even for the Jawai documentary that you did.
So let's put it this way: I spent several months filming in Jawai, and we have hours and hours. And by the way, it wasn't just my. There was footage from people who were on site. They
Yeah.
were also filming.
Okay.
It was a massive bag of footage that we
Yeah.
shrunk into a 45-minute documentary. Typically, and by the way, with wildlife, it's even more like that, because
Yeah.
you're waiting for that
Perfect
particularly
moment.
perfect moment.
Yeah.
There is a scene in it's called Jawai, India's Leopard Hills.
Yeah.
There's a scene in that where we filmed 8 leopards, or sorry, was it 9? 9 leopards in one frame, and it defies all sort of leopard behavior. All of the leopards are solitary
Yeah,
creatures.
exactly. Yeah.
To see this thing. They were actually 11 when it was filmed, but the other 3 didn't come into the shot. They
no.
were just 10 feet away.
But what were they, like the same family or just?
They you see, it's a strange place, Joy. You have clusters of leopards living on one rock outcrop.
Yeah.
So they could have been one family, but I suspect that there were actually some competitors as well in there.
Yeah.
But they've learned how to live almost like lion prides.
Yeah, and coexist.
And coexist, and which is what made that film so interesting, because it's unlike anything leopards do anywhere
Yeah.
else in the world. So which is why
Yeah.
I think it won the Asian Television Award for the best wildlife film.
It was amazing.
Well, thank you. Yes.
And you after Discovery, this project that you did, when did you start Robin Roy Films
I
officially?
actually started Robin Roy Films way before that, doing the advertising work. It just
Okay.
the nature of work just changed.
Okay. So, aside from all these, you've done this film on the Everest Indian Army's women expedition, which was, again, a very unusual sense of genre, because these are not things you really see on a regular basis. Why do you think it's necessary to make films around women empowerment? Like, why was that one of your?
I don't think it was a choice of making a film on women empowerment. However, I was very fortunate that it was a story about very powerful women.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. So it just happened to.
yeah, the Indian Army approached Discovery Channel because they were sending 7 women to attempt to climb Everest. No one knew if they were going to get to the top. Everest, as you know, is
Yeah.
is an extremely
Elusive,
difficult
yeah.
this thing, and not everyone succeeds.
Yeah.
So it became a story whether if we didn't know ourselves whether firstly the 7 women officers were going to get to the top, or whether anyone would get to the top. There's all kinds of things
And
that
did you have to go with them?
So yes, as a team we went, and it's a feeling of great pride when I say that one of my team members got to the summit of Mount Everest
Wow.
while filming these women.
With all the cameras and
Yeah,
equipment.
he had one DSLR with him, and we had strapped head-mounted cameras onto all the team members. So we got incredible footage.
Yeah.
And all the 7 got to the top. All
Wow.
7 women got to the top. So yes, in many ways, it is a film about women empowerment. Let me tell you, in any case, women in the army have to not just break glass ceilings to get there.
Yeah.
They have to survive in an environment that is extremely competitive, taxing,
Male-dominated
male
also,
dominated.
yeah.
And there's a lot of, apart from mental application, there's a lot of huge physical application needed, and they have to constantly be. I think they have to work doubly hard than most men, because they have to command and control men there.
Yeah.
It's a tough
Yeah.
ask. And let me tell you, they're doing terrifically. Today, women in the Indian Army are growing to bigger and bigger heights.
Yeah. No, and I see there's so much going on about it for women to join the army. I mean, even, when you're driving across, there's some billboards that the army puts up where, they want women to join. But, you've talked about wildlife, you've talked about various things that you do. All these things are quite offbeat, right? They're not conventional sort of things that people would watch. Have you ever thought that maybe you should, perhaps try and film a documentary that would be quite commercial and make more money, or is this truly something you just want to follow your passion?
I'd love to make oodles of money. You actually said the right thing. And for youngsters watching,
Yeah.
The documentary world is probably the lowest end of the ladder.
Exactly.
I would put feature films right on top, and then advertising.
Yeah.
And those are guys who make potloads of money.
Yeah.
Us documentarians are less wealthy.
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love my job. I get a chance to learn a new thing every day. One day I'm studying the behavior of leopards.
Yeah.
The next day I'm learning about medieval India.
Yeah.
This thing. The third day I'm researching what the Black Cat commandos of the National Security Guard are doing. It's a job profile that keeps me on my toes all the time.
Yeah. And you're learning constantly.
And I'm learning constantly. And by the way, it takes me to some of the most exciting places of the world.
Yeah.
Of India especially.
Yeah.
I've had the great fortune of
Covering
traveling to all kinds of exotic places in India, and not the kind of places that you would go usually just because you're a tourist and things
Yeah.
like that.
So what are some of those?
Oh, all kinds of places. I mean, I've. Okay, let me just give you this thing. I've swum across an estuary with the only swimming camels known to mankind.
Oh my God! Wow.
So when I did the film for the Rann of Kutch, I heard, just for some local villagers, that there were a bunch of camels that in the summers, when the food gets really scarce on the mainland, they get so hungry that they swim through a little over a kilometer of open ocean to get to a little island to eat these mangrove leaves that are on the other side. So I just thought that that would make the most fantastic story ever, and because like I said, they're the only known swimming camels.
Yeah, that's
So I found them. I mean, I found the camel herders. They couldn't understand what I was saying. I couldn't understand what they were saying. They were from the extreme western point of Gujarat, the Fakirani Jats they're called, and these camel herders were amazed when they thought that when they heard that I wanted to swim with them, and they kept pointing to the water, which by the way is blue like the Maldives.
Yeah.
And they kept pointing, and I saw in the water that there was just filled with jellyfish.
Oh wow.
And they kept telling me with hand signals that they're going to bite you. They sting. And it was too late for me to back out. So I said, I'm going for it. And while my cameraman got into a boat, we hired a boat, a rowing boat. A cameraman with the tripod was in a boat. I strapped a GoPro to my wrist, and I swam this thing. It's a different story that about 500 meters down, I felt I was going to have a heart attack because those camels really move.
Yeah, and
I had
they're
to keep
huge, like gigantic animals, and they're strong.
And they're strong, and they didn't like
somebody else
stranger.
swimming with them.
Yeah, the camel
trying
herders
to catch the same mangrove leaves as them.
So the camel herders who were swimming with them were okay, but every time I came close, they were growling at me. So exotic places, exotic things. It keeps me on my toes.
But is this the most exotic place you've been to in India?
No, there are lots. I've been into the northeast. I've done a film on the Thar Desert. I've seen incredible places in the Thar. I've climbed mountains. It's been a full thing.
And for this film that you made on Rann of Kutch, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi wrote you a personally signed letter. How did you feel when you got that?
Well,
it's quite a huge
it was.
thing.
I mean, if you think about it, Honorable Prime Minister is from Gujarat.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It did come to his attention, but it was a hugely gratifying thing to know that it had been noticed, and a letter from the Prime Minister's office commending us was a fantastic feeling.
So when people want to watch these documentaries, where can they go and watch your
Well, Rann of Kutch is presently on Discovery Plus.
Okay.
So you can catch it there.
Okay. And what has been one of your favorite films that you have made that really sort of made you discover a lot of things about yourself as an individual?
Ooh, tough one. I could say that it was possibly the film on the run or the Jawai film. I'll tell you why. Natural history films put you into situations and moments where you have to spend a lot of time with yourself.
Yeah.
You could spend. I remember sitting for 6 hours waiting for flamingos to give me the right shot. And by the way, 6 hours of trying to be still.
Yeah, you can't move because
you can't move.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on a little tin.
Yeah.
In the middle of a marsh, waiting for the flamingos, and it gives you moments like these. Gives you a lot of time to sort of question yourself and wonder, what the hell are you up to?
Yeah.
But it also apart from that, it gives you a lot of self-reflection time and the rewards are huge when you get that perfect shot. It's a fantastic feeling. It's a great feeling of satisfaction.
And you grow as a human being because you practice so much patience and perseverance that to get that one shot, for example, you said you waited 6 hours. That must really make you feel. I don't think I could ever do that. But then when you do it, you're like, actually, I can, and it's a really incredible feeling.
I think that's what I was trying to express.
Growth.
That you don't know what
you're capable
your
of doing.
capabilities.
Yeah. And this again just takes me back to perhaps a little bit of your journey in school. Do you wish that they had introduced filmmaking, or did they talk about that? I know you went to Doon School.
Yeah, I went to the Doon School, and I went at a time where film wasn't that accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, for
It
God's
was
sake, we
only
didn't have.
like the big.
Yeah, we had a
directors.
VHS. I think the school.
Was documentary filmmaking even a thing when you were in school in India?
They were, of course. They were. I remember there were people one looked up to. There was the Bedi brothers.
Okay.
Who made terrific wildlife documentaries, and so no, of course, documentary was a thing, but to watch them was so difficult. They didn't come onto the cinema.
Yeah.
And
and there was no OTT back in the day.
There was no OTT. There was no television like this. You had clunky VHS tapes which you put into this thing, and to get one of them was also a difficult thing. So we hardly ever watched it, and to watch film while you're studying a subject can change the understanding of that subject so much. I think I was trying to say that a little earlier, that you can't expect, even though I was a reader, I read a lot.
Yeah.
And I digested a lot of information by books.
Yeah.
You can't expect everyone to be a reader. I have friends out there who just can't go through a book.
Yeah.
And for people like them and me, a film at that time would have been so instructive. It would have been so engaging. We didn't have that. I mean, I love history today. A lot of some of my most satisfying work is my historical work.
Yeah.
I would have been a different person if I watched films on history when I was young. Documentaries of on history when I was young.
And even now, I mean, they do try and show a documentary every now and then, but it's not really done in any methodical manner to say, we'll show it on wildlife, we'll show it on the geography of India, we'll show it on military history. And I think it's very important to inculcate that, because you're reading about all this, you're creating awareness, but no one's really. Do schools approach you ever to come and speak about your work or show what work you've done, just so that
I have had a few people approach me. I sadly have just not found the time to go out and do it. But yes, I would love to do it, and I would love to. If nothing else, I would love to just sort of give them. I've just done a series called India Marvels and Mysteries.
Yeah.
They are on monuments across India.
Yeah.
And some of the most incredible places with the most incredible secrets that you don't know.
Like, tell us about some.
Okay, so everyone knows about the Brihadishwara temple in Tanjore. It's one of our oldest and grandest temples built by the famous Raja Chola.
Yeah.
And it has all kinds of mysteries. It's a 216-foot tower built 1,000 years ago, and on the top of it you have an 80-ton or a 60-ton cluster of stones.
Yeah.
How do they get them up there? These are mysteries that the internet is full of. But there are other really strange stuff. On the northern wall it's full of sculptures. On the northern wall of the Brihadishwara temple, you have, and if you look, you have to look at it with a telescope. I did it with a telescopic lens.
You can't go up.
You can't go up, and this is on the outside wall, so you can't even climb up.
Yeah.
It's like a dot. You find a sculpture of what is obviously a European man. It's with a hat and European clothes. And you're talking about years before any Europeans came here.
Into India. Yeah.
Yeah. So what on earth was that doing there? I mean, it's on my film, and So just like this, there are all kinds of incredible little details and nuggets that most people don't know about our monuments.
And even the monuments that we really end up talking about, there's everyone comes from abroad to go to the Taj Mahal. I mean, you obviously must have studied so much about monuments. Which one did you find the most fascinating? Aside, was it the one you just talked about, or was it?
There's several. Do
you think Taj Mahal is actually a very fascinating monument, just in your opinion?
100%.
Yeah.
I think it
deserves the.
There is nothing that has that stature and that size and that delicacy and that beauty. There's no doubt about it. But there are many such effect-creating pieces. The Kailasa temple in the Ellora Caves complex is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Again, mysterious as hell. How did generations of people with little hammers and chisels carve out an entire hill the size of a football field, for God's sake, and out of one stone create a temple.
Wow.
It boggles the mind. It wasn't done. It wasn't done over a few years. It was done over a few generations. So
Yeah.
about 100 years.
Yeah.
So he's one master builder has visualized
That this
this.
is what.
This inside this stone is this incredibly complex temple. Started the work and then handed it down generations to generations, and people. And
Yeah.
you go there today. It's gobsmacking.
No, and it's incredible that In fact, I think these are the things where schools should actually organize tours for kids to go and see because
There's no doubt about it.
And we always talk about going abroad. There's so much to see in India that people actually haven't discovered. But it's becoming more. I think now more people are talking about discovering your own country. There's so much to see. The government is really trying to do a lot with tourism, which earlier wasn't the case so much. Now there's so many different states promoting tourism. What documentary are you making next?
I'm discussing all kinds of things. I'm discussing something with the Indian Army again,
Okay.
and fingers crossed it comes through. Working for the Army is again a very very interesting exercise because it shows you a part of the world that few know about. All of us just when we think of the Army, we think of all
Yeah.
hand over
Jawan
heart,
and, yeah.
border pe hamare
Haan.
jawan,
Yeah.
but they don't realize, sure, border pe jawan, no doubt about it, patriotism. They don't realize that here is one organization that is still adhering to levels of efficiency that few other places have.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, a lot of what we see in India has, this chalta hai, ye ho raha hai. The army
is
works
just-
like clockwork.
Yeah.
They work like clockwork. Sure, they may have their goof ups now and then, but it's you don't really see it. Their environments are spotlessly clean. Everything is on time.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to work with them.
Is it quite? Why do you think they want to keep making these films? What is the purpose behind it?
Well, the viewership in India today has a great appetite for films related to the military.
Yeah.
I think we're going through a period of rediscovering our nationalism.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's lots of this thing, and the army, the military, is a general fit to that. I mean, because yes, there is no doubt that they do stuff which is how does one put it, far more patriotic than most other people do because they're risking their lives.
Absolutely.
They're actually risking their lives
Yeah.
standing out there, on the border.
Yeah.
And so people want to watch that, and they want to. It's also some people don't know enough about it, so it's fascinating.
And tell us some fun things that you learned about the army when you were shooting and when you were working with them.
Fun things.
Like interesting.
I just did a documentary for National Geographic on the NSG, which is
Yeah.
the National Security Guard. Those are the Black Cat Commandos.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
such a fascinating topic. Yeah, please tell us about that.
So the Black Cat Commandos have they have to practice counter-terrorism.
Yeah. Defense.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah.
They're waiting for that. They're the chaps who are called in when everything else fails.
Yeah.
So they have to be on their toes, and these young commandos, many of them they're from the army, the police, and the paramilitary. And the people I was shooting with were a particular unit in the NSG, which were from the army. And these boys really were made to work very hard. So every day I would film all kinds of different operations with them, and I started thinking that I was a commando myself because while they would
You're in that zone
Zone.
of like.
so while they would be creeping in the dark through I remember there was this one mission they were given, a practice mission they were given where
Yeah.
they have by the way, they have a huge campus in Manesar which has forests and it's massive. So it gives them the ideal
Yeah.
area to practice.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the forest there was a little house within which two, three terrorists were put. And these guys had to go and take those terrorists out. A little group of 10 of them or 6 of them. And I thought it was a fantastic thing to film. So when, the moment it got dark, these
Yeah.
guys got into action. And so did my team and I. So we were creeping with them through the forest. But they know more stuff than we do about commandoing. And while walking with my camera, backwards. I was filming them as they were coming towards me. I felt something tug at my leg, and I realized that the terrorists had put tripwires, booby traps, and that wire engaged, and it blew a tear gas grenade right next to me.
Oh, this is all happening like
All
for
happening
real.
for real.
Oh my
And
god.
so I've actually had a tear gas grenade go off that I have detonated
Yeah.
because of my own
How?
stupidity.
What happened after that?
I felt as if I was going to die because tear gas
That is so funny.
in close proximity of
Yeah.
to tear gas. So to put it in a nutshell, I ran. So,
With your camera.
yeah, we all had to. You have to. I mean, you just
Yeah.
can't be there.
I mean, it's a reflex. You
It's
just,
a reflex.
Yeah.
You got to get out because
Yeah.
you have an explosion and then you have dense smoke that makes you choke.
Yeah.
So you got to get out. So yeah, many,
That
many
is-
many crazy things like this.
And what is now? So coming back to a little bit to your wildlife, you've done leopards. Is there anything else that you're planning in the wild?
I
Because
would-
now India, especially, I mean, everything has become so popular around wildlife. Suddenly, I think in the last 10-12 years, everyone wants to go to the jungle. It's much more famous, this whole wildlife tourism, than it was earlier.
I'm so happy to hear that. When I was in my 20s, I genuinely believed that the tiger wouldn't live to see another couple of
Human.
decades. Yeah, I thought that was the end
Yeah.
of them. So to see that Project Tiger has actually kicked in, is working,
Yeah.
and because the apex predator, which is the tiger, is doing well, the rest of the forests are
Flourishing, yeah.
this thing. I mean, despite the fact that we still have huge amounts of
Yeah, of
deforestation,
course.
which can't be ignored. But I'm just saying that our tiger parks seem to be working.
Yeah.
And if there is a little bit of contribution of wildlife filmmakers to make people aware,
Yeah.
I hope we've done some good. I don't know.
Yeah. But does the government involve you to say, you know what, we need to do? We need to create these films, more and more films. So
I
that people are
haven't-
aware?
I haven't, unfortunately, I haven't done any government work on environmental.
Okay, so, yeah.
this thing. I would love to.
Yeah.
From your medium, I hope someone
Yeah.
hears this and gives me a job. But I'd love to. But I haven't. I haven't had the fortune of doing any government work on in the environment space.
So, what is your personal favorite moment ever filming any of your films? What has been that one moment where you were just wowed?
I can't give you a one moment. There've been so many. I have fabulous memories of. I did a film on the restoration of Humayun's tomb
Okay.
in Delhi, and for the Discovery Channel. That's a film very close to my heart because it's one of the most beautiful monuments that I consider, and I've explored the interiors of its double dome, which means that when you see that dome, you don't realize that there's an inner cavity which I've crawled through.
Oh, wow.
And while crawling through, I kept telling myself that you're never going to do this again. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in the underground crypt where Humayun actually is buried. What you see on top is just
It's just, yeah.
So I've actually stood next to it.
Wow.
So there are moments like that that
Which only you have the privilege
of
filming
yeah.
and seeing.
and it's the good fortune of being there. I'll tell you one thing, and I think that goes out to anyone who might be trying to follow this
Yeah.
job. I remember at one point standing with my crew at about 9,000 feet above sea level. We were doing a film on the Ganges, the source of the Ganges. We were trekking up in the Himalayas, and while trekking, we suddenly found an apple orchard where apples were being harvested.
Yeah.
And so I quickly stopped and said, "Oh, let's film." And we started filming there. And while filming, I plucked a lovely red apple and I bit into it. And something in
This is reminding me of the Adam and Eve story for some reason.
it doesn't get as graphic as that. I bit into the apple and I suddenly stopped and I told my crew, I said, "Guys, just stop for a second." And everyone looked up at me and said, "Why?" I said, "Just stop." And I said, "Guys, just think about
Absorb.
it. It's Monday morning at work.
Yeah.
It was Monday morning."
Yeah.
I said, "It's Monday morning in the office." And everyone stopped for a moment and realized then what I had said. How lucky can you be
Yeah.
to have a Monday
absolutely.
morning at work like that? there were snow mountains around me. I had an apple in my hand, gorgeous weather,
Yeah.
and that's my work.
That is unbelievable. And you're so lucky that you're following your passion. I mean, in fact, just yesterday I did a podcast with someone, he runs a business himself, and the topic was the business of happiness. And he was talking about this, that, so many of us just chase money, or that whole societal pressure of what success is and what society has defined as success, that we don't end up following our passion, even though everyone says, you should do what you love and you'll automatically do well. That's not always necessarily the case. I mean, you still know that, for example, today if you went and started working for Dharma Productions, you may make more money, but you may not be as happy.
I hope you're right. Hey, listen, don't get me wrong. I'd love lots of money.
No, of course.
I'd love it, but I think there's a great value in having fun with what you do.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think you. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you can do an absolutely terrific job if you're not having fun doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, message out to anyone who's listening: find something that, if not completely absorbs you, at least
Yeah.
grabs you, 75%.
But do you think schools play a huge role in embedding this thing of exam, grade? How can they change that? Because this has to be a mindset that comes from childhood, not from not something that happens at a later
Yeah, so
stage.
schools have a great role
Yeah.
in by that, and sometimes they don't, which is where the foundation doesn't get laid, and it's very sad. I'm so happy that I went to a school that was in the foothills of the Himalayas, and I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. So
Yeah.
it gave me a lot of gave me a great affinity to the natural world.
Yeah.
I just loved being in the mountains and in
Yeah.
the forest. I was like a little kid with stars in my eyes.
Yeah.
Coupled with that, I was allowed to be given the chance to do fine arts. I was the only, by the way, the
Yeah.
only kid in my entire class.
Yeah.
So I was a class of one.
Yeah.
I did fine arts.
And they created this for you, right?
They-
They,
you
had
know,
a
they-
special
Yeah, I mean,
class for you
class for
because
you.
of
Needless to say, a lot of people thought that was completely
nuts.
nuts. But I look back at it and thank God, maybe it did, sort of inculcate some sort of creative passion in me.
Yeah. And there's so many kids who are now, you see, obviously photography is becoming very popular again because of this tourism, etc., that people are traveling so much now in India. There's so many different formats that they can choose from. What is your advice for people who want to get into filmmaking, kids who want to really do this? How should they start, and what should the proper steps be?
Of course, that's a difficult one, talking to a person you're asking a person who's uneducated in film. However, know one thing, that if you're going to a film school, I'm saying this out of experience because I have now had, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I've mentored
Yeah.
several, not generations, but I've mentored a lot of budding filmmakers,
Yeah.
and many who have been to film school.
Yeah.
So, by the way, and not just that, I've also worked with and even employed people who've lectured in film schools. So I know the kind of stuff that goes on there. Anyone who has to make sure that the film school they're going to is a quality place.
So what is some of the best?
I would definitely say that in India, FTI and
Yeah.
Jamia, this thing. I can't speak for the others because I don't know enough, and I've
Yeah.
not had the best experiences with people from there. But don't get me wrong. I don't know enough. But what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of filmmaking can be learned by filmmaking.
Yeah.
Learning on the job is a huge component
Yeah.
of filmmaking. The creative flair inside you will, I think, come through in any case.
Yeah.
Film school will certainly hone it because you're in an atmosphere where everyone is talking film and everyone
And
is seeing film,
creative
and there's ideas being
Yeah.
passed around. Again, that's something that you can replicate by keeping that kind of company.
Yeah.
You can, if you're not in film school, just make sure that you're viewing huge amounts of stuff that is film related.
Yeah.
You're making friends with people who discuss the same things as you, so you can be creative and bounce your ideas off each other. And remember, today filmmaking is you got a phone, you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's and who is your, when you were growing up, which films did you see that made you be like, this is what I want to do? Was there anybody in particular whose films you loved watching?
No, I don't think I get that. I watched all kinds of films and I loved them. But I loved a lot of them. There's some films that I didn't like as well. But I love films on wildlife. I love books on wildlife. I love photos on wildlife. They were, like I said, the Bedi brothers were back then. I remember getting a book called India's Wild Wonders, and being absolutely gobsmacked because we couldn't watch films because they weren't there. So to see large format photographs was so exciting. So there were a lot of influences back then, but I've exposed myself to a lot of different kinds of films, especially feature films, and I've loved them all.
So it's safe to say, Robin, that you're hiring and people can apply now if they want internships with you.
Everyone is more than welcome. Like I said, being a solo filmmaker, I have the moment I get a project, I have a lot of people who come on board.
Yeah.
And so yes, if there's something happening, please.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Robin. It was so nice talking to you, and I've learned so much, such interesting facts. I'm ready to now make my travel itinerary with where I'm going next, thanks to your recommendations.
Lovely to have been chatting
Thank
with
you
you
so much.
Cheers.